Well, Natalie, welcome to Ask Dr. Gray Pre-Med Q&A. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. What can I answer for you today?
So I wanted to know more about applying as a non-traditional student,
Okay.
in terms of upward trends of GPA. What is considered a significant upward trend? What is not? What are they really looking for? How much does the undergrad GPA matter in that case?
Yeah. So define upward trend and kind of give me a rundown of what your GPA looks like now.
Sure. So I majored in business in undergrad and I got a 3.24 GPA.
Okay.
And I didn't take any, there was no science. Well, there was one science class maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So that's the saving grace, right? Is business not going to impact your science GPA much?
Actually, the one science class I took, which was microbiology online, I ended up getting an A. So if that
Nice.
counts, we're okay. So,
Okay.
but the overall GPA was a 3.24.
Okay.
And right now, I'm a little more than halfway through the prereq science courses. I'm doing them at a community college as a DIY postbac program.
Okay.
And I'm sitting at a 3.8 right now.
Okay.
Now I'm taking a summer class with a summer organic chemistry class where
Okay.
I'm most likely going to pull a B. So I calculated it and it's going to drop to 3.7.
Oh
So
no.
we're going, yeah, I know.
We're going backwards. All right.
Yeah, I know. So, from going to a 3.24 to a 3.7, I only have three classes left after this organic chemistry
Okay.
class. And in those three classes, I calculated realistically, if I get two A's and a B, it would stick at a 3.7 because of how many credits each one is worth. So going from 3.24 to 3.7, I mean, is that a pretty strong upward trend? Is it not?
Yeah.
I still didn't get straight A's. So
Yeah, so your situation is great because your initial mediocre 3.2-ish GPA was non-science. And so
right.
your science GPA is going to be solid 3.7 whatever, right? So that's a
Yeah,
solid
correct.
science GPA. And then you also have this cumulative GPA, which if you haven't done, you can go to what'smygpa.com and it'll give you the little graph and show
Okay.
you everything. But for everybody watching and listening, they can do that as well. Your cumulative GPA is going to kind of be potentially flatline whatever those trends look like in
Right.
your first undergrad, if there was any big valleys or peaks or whatever. But you will go from kind of a 3.2, let's say it's pretty flat, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and then 3.7 for however many credits for your postbac. And so that's going to look solid. To me, the story is, okay, this student wasn't super engaged early on, wasn't
Right.
maybe potentially sure what she wanted to do. This student maybe knew what she wanted to do in business, but understood that grades really didn't matter. And so there's so many stories that can be told from
Yeah.
looking at a transcript and going, okay, these are all business classes. The grades are
Right.
mediocre and it's business. Like
Yeah.
when you go out, Google's not really going to ask you for your GPA. They want to know what your skill set is. So
Right.
you're fine, right? As long as you're doing everything else appropriately, right? The GPA is just one part of your
course.
application. All right, you have your
Of course.
GPA, your MCAT, your activities are huge. So are you making sure that all of those other things are looking good as well?
Yes, I'm trying my best.
Okay.
I definitely I have extracurriculars that I think are pretty strong. I've been told by a few professors and stuff like that, that they think that they would look really good on the application.
Okay.
But they're definitely very unique extracurriculars. Like, I don't even know what category to really put them in. They're a little bit different than the traditional, let's say. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to play for me or against me.
Yeah.
But I definitely have some unique stuff there. And as for the MCAT, I'm taking that in 4 weeks.
Okay.
So I've really tried hard to do a lot of practice exams and study, and I finally crossed the 500 on my last practice exam. So I think with as soon as this class ends, which is next week, I have 3 solid weeks of absolutely nothing but MCAT studying, and I've already crossed the 500. So I think that if I really put effort in, I can definitely get that. I'm aiming for 510. I don't know if that's
completely doable.
Score, I don't really
know. No, it's a good score. The average now, as we're recording this for AAMC, the latest report is 511.2 for matriculants. That's for AAMC. So for MD schools, DO schools is around a 504. I forget the exact number there. And so DO schools look and favor a lot of other factors, much more than the MCAT, and just kind of historically of self-perpetuating prophecy of students with higher MCAT scores potentially not applying to DO schools anyway. It just kind of perpetuates those trends. Activity-wise, it's great. So as we're recording this, it's mid-July. You're taking your MCAT in August. Are you applying this 17th. Current cycle or next cycle?
So I'm going to, I don't know. That's the thing. I think it's too late for this cycle.
So that tells me you haven't submitted your application yet.
No, I haven't. Okay. I'm looking at a couple of schools actually based in Israel that are like American programs. I don't know if you know, like Sackler that's tied with New York. So their applications are opening right now. So I'm thinking of applying to them right now, and then maybe a couple of the schools in the US. I don't know, it's kind of late in the application cycle. Yeah. And then applying to the US schools in the next application cycle as soon as it opens, and then making my decision from there. So
tell me your thought process on the Israeli schools.
Yeah, so basically my husband is Israeli, so it makes sense for us. He wants to move back, so it just makes sense that, you know, it's a good fit for me. And I kind of felt like my GPA and MCAT, I don't know how competitive it is. So I know that those schools might be, and Sackler is pretty competitive, but it's definitely, I think, a little less competitive than US schools. So, you know, I feel like I have a little bit of a higher chance to get into those schools as well.
Well, your GPA is outstanding, right? So to say that I don't know. Yeah, no, it is, right? Because your science GPA is outstanding. That's going to far outweigh your lower cumulative GPA and your previous kind of all other GPA, which is going to be 3.2-ish, 3.3-ish, whatever that is. So you're already starting the process kind of confidence level super low, right? And you can't. You have to start it high, knowing that, look, I'm a competitive applicant. We need to get your MCAT score a little bit boosted, and we can talk a little bit about your prep kind of plans. But from a GPA perspective, I know that was kind of like your main question coming into this. Your GPA is the least of your concerns. Period.
So let's say like something goes wrong and it drops to 3.6 instead of 3.7.
Oh, it's terrible. Terrible.
Fine?
So what is terrible? And I'm joking about being terrible.
I don't know what's considered good or bad. I have no idea. I didn't come from like an undergrad where I like med school was what I wanted to do my whole life. I'm non-traditional. I don't really have a lot of guidance. I have no idea what's considered good or bad.
So the average matriculant, right? So students who are getting into and starting medical school is around a 3.7 for the AAMC. Right? So you're right there.
For the science GPA?
For, I think it's all GPA. I haven't looked through the data in a month or two. The science GPA and cumulative GPA are relatively close, with cumulative GPA being just a little bit higher, just kind of on average.
Right.
Your GPA is fine. What may be concerning to me if you drop down and got a C, right, in something your last semester, it's like, ooh, like where did that C come from?
What happened?
If you're stumbling into the finish line, that could potentially be a question for me. But your GPA is not a concern. Right? So get that out of your head. So what is a concern is, again, we're recording mid-July. You're taking the MCAT mid-August. Your MCAT score is not going to come back until mid-September.
September.
You haven't submitted your application yet.
Right.
Have you written personal statement, activities, any of that stuff?
I have.
You have written all of those.
Yeah.
Why haven't you submitted your application yet? Because your confidence isn't there?
Yeah, well, I felt like, you know, with the MCAT, I feel like it's going to be too late this cycle, you know? Like, we always talk about submitting, like, at the very beginning of the cycle. And, you know, I think that most of the seats will be filled by then. And I'm not, you know, I'm competitive, but I'm not that strong like an applicant. So
perfect thought process, right? For me, a mid-August MCAT date is just too late for the current cycle. So if I were you, I would not apply to medical school this cycle, including the Israeli schools, and take the MCAT. If you are not getting the scores that you want within a couple weeks of your MCAT date before you can reschedule or cancel and kind of get some money back, then cancel or reschedule, push it out, because if you're not applying this cycle, then the MCAT isn't really a rush. And so I'd rather you be prepared for the MCAT than take it because you quote unquote need to take it right now. I wouldn't apply to Sackler. I did some mock interviews with a student who got into Sackler recently. He wanted to go to Israel. He's been to Israel a bunch, obviously Jewish, and wanted to go to Israel and be there for a while. Your husband is Israeli. The question is, does he want to stay in Israel, or does he just want to go hang out in Israel for a couple of years before you come back?
He would prefer to move back
to the States,
if that was an option.
Yeah,
to Israel.
Okay. So if you look at, and I have a very limited understanding just from this one student I was working with, having some conversations with him. Sackler really doesn't want you to stay in Israel, right? They want to train students and then come back to the States and spread the Sackler name and go, hey, this is awesome. I'm practicing here in the U.S. I went to Israel. And so if you don't have a strong message that says, hey, I'm going to come back to the States and practice and be a good alumnus, then there are some potential issues there. But really the biggest thing for me is that you're an international medical graduate, right? You're an IMG, just like Caribbean grads are IMGs, just like going to Australia or wherever, right? You're an IMG, and that's just automatically, based on how our residency system is set up, it automatically puts you at a disadvantage. And to want to do that or kind of have that as your first choice, for me, just doesn't make sense. If you were like, you know what, I just love Israel, I'd love to be there for 4 years, although you're really only there for 2 years, right? Because you come back and you do rotations in New York typically.
Only for the fourth year for 4 months.
Fourth year for 4 months is when you come back?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're there for a long time. So if you're like, I want to be in Israel, that's just where I want to be. I know the risks, great, right? As long as you kind of know the risks of what you're doing and you're okay with those risks, then go for it. The other question potentially comes up, well, what are you interested in doing, right? If you're interested in something that's just not competitive, like family practice, internal medicine, great, go for it. As an international medical graduate, you do well on the boards, you're a U.S. citizen, you will probably be okay. If you're interested in a super competitive specialty like dermatology, orthopedics, neurosurgery, right, getting into those specialties is hard no matter who you are, and then even harder as an IMG. Because the assumption from the program director standpoint, the assumption is, well, you weren't good enough to get into a U.S. medical school, so why should we even look at you as an IMG?
Right.
And you just don't want to put that stigma on yourself. And there are amazing IMGs. I fight this battle every day, right? Even though I'm telling you not to go to Israel, even though I would say the Caribbean shouldn't be your first or second or third choice, right? There are amazing physicians who come from those places. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a good doctor. It just means it puts you at a disadvantage to start this process coming back to the States.
Right. So you tell me, I want to go into allergy immunology. So I'm guessing that's an internal med.
Yep. So it's an internal medicine fellowship. So you would go to internal medicine again. So not super competitive again, potentially, unless you want to be in a competitive environment. So then when you look at the least or less competitive specialties, then it's like, okay, well, as an IMG, do you want to be in New York City? Do you want to be in LA? Do you want to be in the Bay Area? Do you want to be in Boston, right? And then it's like, well, even though it's internal medicine, it's still going to be super competitive because of the location of the programs.
Right.
And so if you are interested in internal medicine to follow on with a fellowship, great. Then the next question is, where in the country do you want to do your training? And if you're okay being in the Midwest, if you're okay being in the South, wherever, right? Some of the lower competitive areas, you'll probably be fine. And I would say go enjoy yourself and have fun in Israel for 3.5 years.
Right. Right. That makes sense.
Mazel
That's
tov. Go
something that
have fun.
yeah.
So
No,
what do you
that's something
think
that
when
I
I say
definitely
that?
need to think about. That I definitely need to, that's a consideration. You see,
Mhm.
the thing is, I love living in Israel too. I lived there before and all my family's from there. But if I do residency in Israel, I can't practice in the US. And it's very important for me to have an MD from the US. So that's why even if I go to med school there, I want to do residency in the US. Even if I end up
Yep.
moving back to Israel after, I need to do the residency in the US.
Yeah.
Because I can practice in Israel if I do it here, but I can't practice here if I do it there.
Yeah, we have a very elitist medical system here that says we want people trained in the States to take care of our people in the States.
Right.
And other countries are like, yeah, come on in. But it's also right. Again, I don't know the Israeli medical system well enough to go, well, they will accept a U.S. trained physician. Will they accept an Indian trained physician, right? Or is it just
right.
U.S. because we have a very good training system here, right? I'm not going to say our medical system is the best in the world because it's not, but we have a great training setup here. So it's just an elitist thing that we have that we only want, and it's part of it is because we have a lot of we have plenty-ish of supply for our residency slots. We are projected to have a big physician shortage, and so there could be a time, and there have been in the past, where people who are trained outside of the States, doing residency outside of the States, are kind of granted a license because we need them. And so that potentially is in the future. But for where you are now, coming back, doing your residency here, will obviously open up the most doors for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I definitely have some decisions to make.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk for a minute about your MCAT prep and where you're going with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You just crossed the 500 barrier. Your test is in a month.
Yeah.
What are the plans for the next month?
So I crossed the 500 barrier. I got to 503 was the last exam I took, and that was my let me see, fifth full length exam. So I've taken quite a few already. And I started my first full length. I think I got like a 482 or something. It was so low.
Yeah.
So I've raised it quite a lot.
Good.
In a short amount of time. So I'm pretty confident that I can keep raising it. I think my organic chemistry class I'm taking now is definitely going to help me raise the score because I was missing organic chemistry like completely.
Yeah.
And so I already have the 7 books from Kaplan, and I took the 3 full lengths from Kaplan, and then I bought 6 full lengths from Next Step, and I took the first 2 so far. And the second one is the one where I got 503.
Okay.
And so I think that for this last week, I'm kind of going to focus on not studying for the MCAT and just studying for my final. So I make sure I get a B in this class, and then taking the next 3 weeks to completely study every single day, 8 to 10 hours on the MCAT only.
Yeah.
And taking a lot of full length. So my plan is I have 4 full lengths left from Next Step, and then I want to do the 3 from AAMC, and I want to do those last.
Okay.
So I have 7 full lengths left. I want to do all 7 in those 3 weeks and review them.
Okay.
And there's some topics, I've taken 5 full lengths already. I've noticed certain themes that come up in every exam.
Yep.
And certain, subjects that I know I need to learn or review.
Yep.
And so there's a couple things that I need to do some content on.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to focus on those. So that's kind of my plan.
Yeah. So to me, just hearing that plan, I'm automatically going, just push back your test date. Right? 7 full lengths in 3 weeks. That's a crap ton. That's a lot. Because remember, the biggest benefit of a full length is not taking the full length, it's reviewing it.
It's going over it.
It's going over it. And so if you think, okay, 7 full lengths, that's 7 days.
Yeah.
2 days to fully review a full length. You're at 21 days, right? So that's 3 days total, right? For each full length.
I can review in 1 day. I've done that with
you can. Can you do it? Can you review properly in 1 day? And I would probably tell you
every exam my score has gone up after reviewing.
Okay.
Every exam.
It's still a 503.
It is, yeah.
Right? So right, ideally,
okay.
2 days to review.
Yes.
But reviewing it isn't then going and learning the material that you haven't that you recognize from the review. It's like, oh, I have a deficiency in this area, right? Oh, I have to go and relearn my amino acids. I have to go and relearn whatever physics equations, whatever, right? And so if in an ideal timeline, you have for each test 1 day to take it, 2 days to review.
Yes.
And then probably 2 to 3 days of content review based on the test review. And so now you're at 5 or 6 days. You're almost at a week for each test. And that's where students go wrong in my mind with their test prep is they go, I'm going to cram in 7 tests in 3 weeks and I'm going to be good because I took 7 full lengths. Right? And they just look at that total number without actually looking at what they did. Right? So I'm a baseball player, right? I love baseball, grew up playing baseball, still play baseball. If I go and I know over the course of a week I need to hit the batting cages and hit 1,000 balls over the course of a week, right? I can go and do it in 1 day and go, okay, I hit 1,000 balls, but my last 600 swings or 700 swings are going to be horrible because I'm exhausted and my muscles are tired and my hands are torn up because I have blisters, right? And that's what you're doing by saying, I have these 7 full lengths. I'm going to cram them in. I got 3 weeks. So just think about it, right? In my mind, I always want to set you up for success. And setting you up for success is knowing that if you're not going to apply this cycle, you don't have to take the MCAT in August. Yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit of money to reschedule it, but I'd rather you reschedule it than try to cram all of this test prep in before the MCAT and potentially go in burnt out because you're cramming it all in, potentially go in defeated because your scores are potentially going to plateau because you're getting burnt out. So there's so many reasons not to take it and almost no reasons to take it in August.
Right. That makes sense. And I mean, do you think that it's because I'm trying to cram the 7 tests, or do you think that 7 more tests are even necessary? Like, how many full lengths should someone take?
It depends on what's going on with your reviews, right? If you're reviewing and it's just stupid mistakes, right? And it's just like, oh, I should have known that, or I did know that, but for some reason I didn't get to the right answer soon enough, or didn't get to the right answer for whatever reason, then potentially more full lengths will help you try to make those switches in your head to go, okay, I'm understanding the way the test is being written now, and I know where to go from here. In that case, more tests will help. If it is a content issue where you're like, I keep missing all the same questions because I don't know this material, etc., then more tests aren't going to help. More tests are just going to show you that you need to do more content review.
Right.
In my mind, do you need to take 10, 11, 12 full-length exams? No, not really. I think 5, 6, 7 full-length exams for the majority of students is going to be plenty. But you're still at a score where I'd want you to improve, and so more full lengths potentially will help you improve if it is if kind of an understanding of the test and how it's written and how to think through the process.
Right. That makes sense. What score do you think I should aim for with considerations
528
GPA and things like that? Well,
everyone should be shooting for a 528.
You're right. You're right.
I don't really play that game of, oh, your GPA is a 3.7, your science GPA is a 3.7, so you should shoot for a 5 whatever MCAT score. You want to get as high as you can get. So if you can get a 510, awesome. If you can get a 515, amazing.
That makes sense.
Right. A higher MCAT score is only going to help you.
Right. That makes sense. But what do you think is too low to apply with?
Too low to apply with is less than 500 in my mind.
Less than 500. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming on. Do you have any other follow-up questions, notes?
I don't think so. I think I got a lot of great advice, and now I definitely have a lot to think about, and I'm definitely going to implement some of the stuff.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.